Good morning, everyone. Goeiemorgen. Thank you very much, our program director, Deputy Minister Andres Nel, and on our behalf, he has acknowledged everybody here. I also acknowledge everyone who's here, and we are pleased that you could make it. Maybe from the beginning, let me say that an emergency robbed us of having the president today, President of the Republic, and many other leaders who were supposed to be here with us made apologies, particularly because this coincides with the memorial service of our late uncle Billy Modise, whose memorial service is taking place right now. Now, this year, 2018, marks this 63rd anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter at that very Congress of the People we have just seen here on the 26th of June, 1955. This is the task of all revolutionary forces of our country to observe this anniversary, and all peace-loving and democratic-loving people, in order for us to reflect on the progress that we've made. In December 1953, the ANC held its annual national conference, Ukomani, which is Queenstown. A historic resolution was then taken to develop a policy document that will reflect the aspirations of South Africans from all walks of life. And in 1955, the Congress of the People was convened, which adopted the Freedom Charter. But today, 63 years later, we have been celebrating and commemorating this very important milestone in our history, the Freedom Charter. But I'm pleased to say that this year we're celebrating it under a different circumstance, and that is that the Freedom Charter, the two copies have been authenticated by the South African Heritage Resources Agency because they were the two remaining authentic documents, as it was claimed by Lillis Leaf and the National Archives, but we had to go through a process of authentifying them. So they are now authenticated. They are the documents which are now going to be in the hands of Lillis Leaf Farm and the National Archives. They are going to protect, conserve them for posterity, so that the people know that this thing happened. And for us, it gives us pleasure to have that kind of a situation, because our next step now will be taking it to the level of UNESCO, because we would want to see the Freedom Charter getting at that level, because as we were saying earlier on, talking to Mzwandile Mbeje, that this is a lodestar policy of body politic in South Africa. And as the preamble of the Freedom Charter says, that we, the people of South Africa, declare for all our country and the world to know that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. And we're saying that even today, black and white, and that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people. 63 years later, we celebrate the unity of the people of South Africa, and the prescripts of the Freedom Charter find expression in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. As I've just read the preamble of the Freedom Charter, let me proceed to read the preamble of the Constitution, and you'll see what we're talking about. It reads, and I quote, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of the past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. With that preamble, it can be seen that the Constitution has its foundation in the Freedom Charter. Let us recognize that under the ANC government, indeed, the people govern. We have held democratic elections every 5 years. Every South African has the right to elect a government of his or her own. And it put through the prescript of the Freedom Charter that no one can claim authority. No government can claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people. And the Freedom Charter has different clauses, which as we go into our democracy, this very nascent democracy we are having in South Africa, it helps us to reflect back and look at the path traversed thus far. One of the clauses of the Freedom Charter is the people shall govern. People's power has its roots in the manner in which leaders are elected in society under the Constitution. We owe the progress and achievements we take for granted today to those who came before us. They had the courage to take on the might of the oppressive state and forge the founding of our democratic dispensation. Today, Parliament has been totally transformed. We have the highest number of women members of Parliament today, and our democracy is a constitutional democracy, no longer a parliamentary democracy as it happened in the past. The other one, all national groups shall have equal rights. After 24 years of ANC government, we can declare unequivocally that South Africans have equal rights, which are entrenched in the Constitution. It is our wish that we deepen these rights and the access of our people to courts, which is still a challenge to a certain degree, the institutions of state, schools, hospitals, and other public facilities. The government will ensure that, as people vowed in 1955, that we'll fight for these freedoms until we achieve them, we'll continue to do what we should for people to achieve their freedoms. And one of the clauses, the people shall share in the country's wealth. South Africa is a much better place and different at that today than it was before 1994. The overwhelming majority of our people live in conditions which are vastly different from what it was even 10 years ago. More people have access to housing, better and more equal access to basic services. More households have been electrified. There have been enormous advances in healthcare and education, and economic opportunities have been opened to the people. However, the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality persist, and the task of the government in the second phase of the democratic transition is that of radical socio-economic transformation. This represents a fundamental break with the ownership patterns of the past and the putting in place of a South Africa that belongs to all who live in it. The vast mineral wealth of our country, which lies beneath the soil, has been transferred to the ownership of the state on behalf of the people as per the provisions of the Freedom Charter, if you understand the essence of the MPRDA. However, this is not translated to equal and full benefit of all South Africans. The government commits itself to continue working with our people to ensure that there is entrenched benefit from this ownership. Banking has become much more accessible to the majority of South Africans, but the excessive bank charges and fees mean that many people still cannot afford bank services. The government is moving ahead with our efforts to establish a bank directly linked and administered by the Post Office, which is the Post Bank. The other clause relate to the land. This is what is a topical issue today. Land has been at the heart of the historic injustice of the people. The majority of our people can mainly trace their suffering and deprivation back to the land dispossession period. The government has restored nearly 3.2 million hectares of land where people have chosen to receive financial compensation. Government has paid out more than 20 billion between 1995 and 2014. Altogether, nearly 1.8 million claimants have benefited from this program during this period. However, we are deeply concerned about the pace of land redistribution. That is why the governing party took a resolution in December in its national conference to fast-track the process of land redistribution to our people. The other clause is about all shall be equal before the law. A key cornerstone of any democracy is an effective, independent, impartial and accessible justice system. We must remain steadfast in our efforts to protect the separation of powers between the executive, legislature, and the judiciary. We can boldly state that laws which discriminate on the basis of race, of gender, and other prohibited grounds have been removed. We can also say that equality before the law and the justice system can be unduly affected by economic status as well as the attitudes of those who interpret the law. The transformation of judiciary remains a priority for our government, but we can say that our judiciary has represented the will of the people as a whole in South Africa, with those few areas of access based on the financial status. All shall enjoy equal human rights. South Africa is steadily emerging from a history of injustice, repression, and dehumanizing of the majority of our people. The Freedom Charter emboldened the drafters of the Constitution to ensure that the rights of the people in South Africa are set out in the Bill of Rights and entrenched in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Our government has always put human rights above any other consideration and calls upon the state to continue to respect and protect, promote, and fulfill the rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights. Our Bill of Rights, which is justifiable, enjoins the state to implement measures to promote dignity, freedom of security and the person, equality, freedom of religion, belief and opinion, freedom of expression, assembly, demonstration and picketing, and freedom of association. The Constitution has created various institutions to support democracy, such as Human Rights Commission, Commission for Gender Equality, Public Protector, Auditor General, Independent Electoral Commission, and the Commission for Promotion and Protection of Rights of Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities. The Constitution empowers government to take measures to protect or advance those people or groups of people who have been discriminated against under apartheid. The other clause is about security. There shall be work and security. The right of workers to form and belong to trade unions is enshrined in the Constitution. The government has put in place a range of laws, such as Labour Relations Act, the Basic Conditions of Employment Act, the Employment Equity Act, and other mechanisms to protect workers' rights and to bring about equality in the workplace. We are concerned that the transformation of the workplace is not taking place fast enough. Semi-skilled and unskilled workers in South Africa remain highly vulnerable to exploitation, and we urge all trade unions to ensure that no worker is left unorganized at factory floor, shops, domestic work, farms, and on the mines. An unorganized worker is an exploited worker. The doors of learning and culture shall be opened. Education continues to be our number one priority as government, as we call it, the apex priority amongst the priorities government has. The government has made great strides in ensuring that education and training is available to all in addressing the injustices of the past, focusing on reversing the systemic impact of apartheid education. We have put in place comprehensive integrated education system. You would recall that we had in the past about 17 education systems in South Africa. We have a comprehensive and integrated one education system as we speak. South Africa spends about 5% of its GDP on basic education and 1.4% on higher education. This is showing significant results. Preschool education has expanded massively. There is gender parity in school enrollment, and we are doing really well in terms of the matric pass rate. We congratulate all the time, as we have seen, the students who pass their matric, because it put them in a better space in the working world. However, we also have challenges at escalating cost of tertiary education. That is why government decided to intervene in ensuring that we closely come to the realization of the Freedom Charter of free education. There shall be houses, security, and comfort. The government can certainly celebrate the fact that, and the people of South Africa, in the past 20 years, we have made, in fact, 24 years, we have made unprecedented progress in delivering basic services to our people, whether it's water, it's electricity, sanitation, refuse removers to millions who were denied these services by apartheid and colonial regimes. Local government has been at the forefront of these tremendous achievements. Despite this, the governance of many of our municipalities is still a challenge and a cause for concern. Local government is the sphere of government that is closest to our people. That is why COCTA has adopted programs like Back to Basics to get the basics right first and foremost at that level. And getting back to basics means providing these services in a professional and caring manner that recognizes the human dignity of each resident. We are here to serve the people. The people are not here to serve us as their government. We should continue to build caring communities so that our people receive their basic needs. The other clause talks about peace. There shall be peace and friendship. In his address to the first Congress of our sister movement, the sister movement of the governing party, the MPLA in Luanda, Angola, 1977, the late president of the ANC, O.R. Tambo, said this, and I quote, "We seek to live in peace with our neighbors and the peoples of the world in conditions of equality, mutual respect, and equal advantage," close quote. we are proud, we as South Africa are proud members of SADC, the South African Union, the United Nations, Socialist International, and many other international organizations. We believe that there can be no development without peace. South Africa has thus, at the request of the AU and United Nations, committed many young men and women in peacekeeping missions on the continent. Our government will continue to pledge our ongoing solidarity with the people who are oppressed in their countries, be they Palestinians, be they Cubans, be they the Sahrawis. We confirm that our liberation as South Africa came about as a result of us focusing on the essence of the Freedom Charter, which proclaimed that there shall be peace, security, and freedom in the whole world. Thank you for your attention.